God says this message is being delivered to you in a moment when your spirit is open in a rare way, and heaven has chosen this precise time for you because something is shifting around you in ways you do not fully see yet. You are reading this now not by chance, not by coincidence, but by divine timing that was arranged long before you realized anything was happening. God says there is an urgency around your name, around your destiny, around a door that is preparing to open, and around a blessing that is scheduled to arrive in your life on time, and the spiritual realm is whispering with intensity because it must reach you before you make a decision that could delay your blessing. God says it is an emergency only because what is coming is so good, so life-changing, so unexpected, that if you walk away from the message now, you might miss the preparation your heart needs in order to receive it fully. But God also assures you that nothing is going wrong, nothing will collapse on you, and nothing will harm you because His hand is over you, His presence is near you, and His angels are surrounding you in ways you cannot yet imagine. God says very good news is coming for you, news that has been delayed, blocked, questioned, and even doubted by some people who thought your story was over, but heaven says your story is only beginning. God says the good news that is coming is not small, not ordinary, and not something that will pass quietly. It is the type of news that changes the way you breathe, the way you walk, the way you think, and the way you see yourself. It is the type of news that makes you realize God was working behind every closed curtain, arranging everything, moving pieces, shifting energies, and preparing a blessing that will make you look back and say, "Now I understand why I had to wait." God says your waiting has not been a punishment, it has been a preparation. It has been training your heart to receive something bigger than what you prayed for, something brighter than what you imagined, something softer and kinder than what you believed you deserved. God says if you leave this message now, you will cry later not because something bad happens, but because you will realize how close you were to receiving clarity, peace, and reassurance that your spirit is desperately asking for. God says He does not want your tears of fear, He wants your tears of joy. He does not want you to walk into your next season confused, He wants you to walk into it with confidence, knowing He is guiding every detail. God says He is not warning you to scare you, He is calling you to strengthen you. He is speaking urgently because the blessing that is on its way is sensitive, delicate, and spiritually timed, and He wants your heart to be awakened and ready for it. God says, I order you to open this message on November 10th before 11:57 p.m., because heaven has aligned something special with that time. It is a window, a spiritual gateway, a divine alignment where your prayers, your desires, and your destiny intersect. God says He wants you to be spiritually present before that moment arrives, because something will shift inside you, a knowing, a realization, or a deep sense of calm will enter you, and you will understand that God has been preparing your spirit for this. God says this message is a seed being planted, and by that time, the seed will begin to bloom inside you in a way that brings clarity to something you have been confused about for months. God says you are safe. Those words repeat again and again in the spiritual realm because your heart has carried silent worry. silent heaviness, silent uncertainty. God says He has seen the moments when you felt alone even when surrounded by people, the moments when you questioned your worth, the moments when you wondered whether the prayers you were whispering were being heard. God says every prayer reached Him. Not a single one was ignored. Not a single tear went unseen. Not a single hope disappeared. God has stored every prayer like a treasure, and now He is preparing to release answers, breakthroughs, and blessings that you thought were impossible. God says trust Him. You don't have to understand everything right now. You don't have to see the full picture. You don't have to know every detail. All you need to know is that God is moving in ways that will soon make you say, "Now my life makes sense." God says prayer is not something you do, prayer is something that carries you. It pulls you through dark nights, it lifts you in silent battles, and it keeps your spirit alive when the world tries to dim you. God says He has loved you through pain, through confusion, through heartbreak, through disappointment, through every season when you felt unsure of yourself. But now God says He is preparing a season where you will feel lifted, supported, chosen, and protected in ways you have not felt before. God says very good news is coming, and this good news is connected to something you once gave up on. It is connected to a dream that you buried, a hope that you forgot, or an opportunity that you thought passed you by. God says He is restoring it. He is bringing it back in a new form, a better form, a version that fits your life now. God says the blessing that is coming is bigger than your last disappointment, stronger than your last heartbreak, and brighter than the darkness you walked through. This blessing is not the kind that breaks easily. It is the kind that strengthens your life permanently. God says someone will speak your name soon in a room filled with opportunity. Someone will mention you in a way that opens doors for you. Someone will think of you at the exact moment when an opportunity arises. God says this is not luck, this is divine arrangement. This is destiny stepping in. This is God touching someone's heart and guiding them toward you. God says your name is being carried by angels right now, placed gently into places your feet have not yet walked, into environments you are destined to enter, into conversations that will uplift your future. God says you have been prepared for something big. You may not feel prepared, you may feel tired, you may feel worn out, but God says preparation is happening in your spirit even when you don't notice it. God says He is training your heart to see differently, to trust differently, to hope differently, to receive differently. God says the blessing that is coming requires a strong heart, a confident mind, a calm spirit, and a soft soul. God says He is shaping these qualities inside you right now. God says you will not fail. You will not fall apart. You will not be humiliated. You will not be abandoned. God says every fear that has been trying to rise inside you is being silenced right now by His presence. Every doubt is being pushed away. Every insecurity is being washed out of your spirit. God says He is replacing fear with faith, worry with peace, confusion with clarity, and sadness with strength. God says He is holding your future in His hands, and He is shaping it into something beautiful. God says the reason this message feels urgent is because your breakthrough is close. It is not far away, it is not delayed anymore, it is not blocked. It is approaching quickly, quietly, powerfully. God says you will notice signs, unexpected signs, subtle signs, loud signs, that confirm something is coming. You may feel sudden waves of calm, unexpected peace, unusual hope, or surprising confidence. You may have moments where something inside you whispers, something good is coming. That whisper is God. God says He is sending angels to walk with you. Angels to protect you. Angels to guide you. Angels to comfort you. Angels to bring clarity where there was confusion. Angels to bring peace where there was fear. God says you have never been alone for a single moment. And you will not be alone in the days ahead. God says before November 10th ends, something in your spirit will shift. A new realization, a soft message from heaven, a moment of inner light that makes you feel grounded and safe. God says this is the beginning of your blessing unfolding. This is the spiritual confirmation that you are aligned with what is coming. God says trust Him, pray to Him, and allow your heart to open. Something beautiful is coming, and nothing will go wrong for you. God says you are protected, guided, and deeply loved. Your blessing is on schedule, your breakthrough is on the way, and your spirit is being lifted right now because heaven has chosen you for something very good. God says this is an emergency, and even as you are reading these first few words, something inside you is awakening because heaven has been trying to reach you again and again, and this moment is not a coincidence. God says very good news is coming for you, news that will shift the direction of your life, your spirit, your strength, and your destiny. God says if you leave this message unfinished or take it lightly, you will cry later, not because something bad will happen, but because you will regret missing what heaven is placing into your hands right now. God says He orders you to open this fully before November 10th, before 11:57 p.m., because something will happen in the unseen. And your spirit needs to be ready for it. God says you are safe, nothing will go wrong with you, and even when situations try to scare you or make you feel small, His protection is covering you like a shield that cannot be broken by any human action, any hidden plan, or any energy sent against you. God says just trust Him and pray to Him, because your prayer is opening a door that has been locked for years. God says He has watched your tears, especially the ones you cried silently, the ones you never told anyone about, the ones that came at night when the whole world seemed asleep and you felt like you were fighting battles alone. But God says you were never alone, not even for 1 second. He says during those nights, His angels stood by your bed, watching over you, whispering strength into your spirit, even when you felt too tired to continue. God says this season has felt heavy, confusing, and exhausting, but that was because something big was being prepared for you, something that required spiritual endurance, something that needed your heart to be strong, even when your emotions felt weak. God says very good news is already traveling toward you, and this news carries joy, relief, breakthrough, and a level of peace you haven't felt in a very long time. God says you might feel like your blessings were delayed, like something kept blocking your progress, like situations kept going backwards whenever you tried to move forward. But God says those delays were not punishments, they were protections. God says He was blocking certain people from entering your next chapter because they did not have the capacity, the honesty, or the heart to walk with you where He's taking you. God says some people around you were pretending to be happy for you, but in their hearts, they were afraid of your growth, your potential, and your divine purpose. God says He removed them in silence for your protection. You may not have understood why certain relationships faded, why certain calls stopped coming, why some people suddenly changed, but God says He saw what you couldn't see. He heard conversations that happened behind your back. He saw intentions that were hidden behind smiles. And He says He stepped in because He will never allow you to walk into a future containing people whose hearts are not aligned with your goodness. God says the good news coming to you is not small. It is not basic. It is not ordinary. God says this is life-changing good news, and the enemy tried to block it, but heaven overruled it. God says He has signed something with His own hand in your destiny, and not even delay, negativity, betrayal, or fear can cancel it. God says you are stepping into a shift that was prepared for months, and heaven has been waiting for the right moment to release it. God says November is a month of spiritual movement for you. And November 10th before 11:57 p.m. is a marked moment, a divine appointment, where your spirit will be aligned with what He has written for you. God says He needs you to receive this message seriously, because what is coming requires emotional and spiritual readiness. God says He knows you have been hurt. He knows you have been disappointed. He knows you have questioned why certain things happened the way they did. But God says He is about to replace your pain with clarity, your exhaustion with strength, and your confusion with direction. God says the things that hurt you will accidentally bless you. The people who underestimated you will accidentally push you into your calling. The moments that broke you will accidentally build you. God says the things that were meant to destroy you will become the things that elevate you. God says He is lifting something off your shoulders right now. Something spiritual, something heavy, something that has been draining your energy. God says you don't even realize how strong you are, because you have been battling invisible things that would have crushed another person. But God says you survived because His hand was on you. God says you survived because your purpose is bigger than your pain. God says you survived because your spirit is chosen, and chosen souls cannot break, they transform. God says He is sending an angel to stand beside you in these coming days. This angel is not coming to warn you of danger, this angel is coming to deliver blessings, alignment, and spiritual revelation. God says this angel carries instructions for you, and heaven will guide you step by step into your breakthrough. God says signs will start appearing around you, numbers, dreams, sudden feelings, unexpected messages, moments that feel like intuition but are actually divine whispers. God says pay attention, because the spiritual world is moving around you with intention. God says the good news coming will change the atmosphere in your home, the energy around your finances, the direction of your relationships, and the stability of your future. God says He is preparing an opportunity for you. Something unexpected, something that will feel like a miracle because it will arrive at the perfect time, from a place you didn't expect, through a connection you never imagined would matter. God says this is not random, it is destiny unfolding. God says the fear you have been carrying is releasing now. The loneliness that touched your heart is dissolving. The sadness you kept inside your chest is healing. God says He is sending light into places that have been dark for too long. He is sending peace into thoughts that have been heavy for too long. He is sending answers to questions that have troubled you for too long. God says He is not just blessing you, He is restoring you. God says your name is entering rooms and conversations where your feet have not yet stepped. God says you will receive communication, opportunities, forgiveness, clarity, and breakthroughs that will surprise you. God says the good news coming for you is wrapped in divine timing. God says He delayed nothing. Everything is arriving at the exact moment your soul can hold it without breaking. God says you will not lose anything meant for you. God says your blessings are not going to the wrong person. God says the situation that tried to rob you is already defeated in the spiritual realm. God says He has already handled the energy, the negativity, the jealousy, and the unseen attacks that tried to stop you. God says you are protected, covered, guarded, and surrounded by light. God says He needs you to trust Him, even when things don't make sense. Even when it feels like life is pulling you backwards. Even when you feel tired. Even when you feel unsure. God says He is the God of sudden miracles, the God of divine reversals, the God of unexpected blessings, and He is preparing something for you that will confirm your worth, your value, and your purpose. God says this message reached you because you were meant to read it. God says nothing is accidental. God says He touched your spirit so you would click, so you would open, so you would read, so you would receive. God says He orders you, do not leave this message. Do not skip it. Do not ignore it. Before November 10th at 11:57 p.m. Something spiritual will shift, something divine will open, and your spirit must be prepared. God says you are safe. God says nothing will go wrong with you. God says He is right beside you, watching over you, protecting you, guiding you, and loving you more deeply than you know. God says this to you in this moment because heaven has been watching you very closely, and there is something moving in the unseen that is reaching directly toward your life. God says it is an emergency, not because anything bad is coming toward you, but because something extremely good, extremely rare, and extremely life-changing is being released for you, and heaven cannot allow you to miss it. God says very good news is coming for you. News that will shift the weight you've been carrying, news that will feel like a soft miracle touching the areas of your life you stopped expecting to be healed. God says if you walk away from this message, your heart will feel the pain of missing something that was divinely aligned for you. That is why God orders you to open this before 11:57 p.m. on the 10th of November. That moment is not random. That moment is divinely chosen, because something aligned spiritually at that time that has your name handwritten on it. God says you have walked through moments where you felt like you were standing alone, even when people were around you. You prayed quietly, sometimes with words, sometimes with tears, sometimes with silence. You didn't ask for much, just peace, just clarity, just a sign that the heaviness you kept inside would eventually lift. God saw each of those moments. God says the tears you cried when no one saw you were counted, not ignored. Every moment you kept going even when your heart felt exhausted became a seed planted in the spiritual realm. God says your harvest is finally coming. Heaven is not delaying your blessings anymore. Something extremely powerful is moving toward you faster than you expect, and God wants to make sure your heart is open at the right time. God says the reason this message came to you today is because you have been chosen for something that cannot be missed. There is an alignment happening around your destiny. You may not see it physically yet, but in the spiritual world, things are shifting for your protection and elevation. God says very good news is coming, and for some reason this good news had been blocked before. It had been delayed. It had been held back by forces you did not see. But the delay is over. God says this time nothing can stop it. Not people, not jealousy, not fear, not negativity, not confusion, not doubt. Heaven itself is sealing this breakthrough with divine authority. God says you have walked through seasons where you trusted people who were not worthy of your trust. You gave love to those who did not know how to return it. You carried burdens you never deserved, and you forgave things that would have broken someone else completely. God says you are stronger than you think, and your strength has attracted divine favor. There were moments where you thought you were losing everything, but God says you were actually being prepared to receive more than you imagined. God says what you thought was an ending was actually a redirection. What you thought was rejection was actually protection. What you thought was silence was actually a setup for something greater. God says there is a moment coming soon, and this moment will surprise you. It will feel like the atmosphere around you shifts. It will feel like a weight lifts off your chest. God says very good news is coming, and it will answer questions you've been holding in your heart. It will give clarity to confusion. It will give relief to pressure. It will give peace to anxiety. God says this good news is going to touch your finances, your relationships, your emotional stability, and your spiritual growth. Heaven is sending something that will restore your confidence, your hope, and your faith in what is possible for your future. God says, do not walk away from this message. Do not ignore it. Do not delay reading it. If you leave it, you will cry later because your spirit will sense that something important slipped out of your hands. God says He ordered you to open this before 11:57 p.m. on the 10th of November because that time is spiritually chosen for a release. God wants you spiritually aware, emotionally open, and mentally prepared for what He is sending. A doorway is opening at that time. God wants you to walk through it, not stand outside it in uncertainty. God says for a long time your life has felt like a waiting room. You were waiting for things to improve, waiting for the right person, waiting for financial stability, waiting for peace, waiting for answers, waiting for support. God says that long season of waiting is ending. Something is speeding up for you. Heaven is accelerating your blessings. The spiritual world is clearing your path. God says He is removing the things that drained your energy, the people who used your kindness. The situations that pulled you backward instead of forward, and the fear that held your voice and your growth hostage. God says you have been judged by people who didn't understand your heart. You were underestimated by those who didn't see your worth. You were overlooked in moments where you should have been recognized. But God says He never overlooked you. Heaven saw your value even when the world did not. Heaven saw your effort even when people ignored it. Heaven saw your heart even when others misunderstood it. That is why your blessing is coming from God and not from people. God says very good news is coming for you. Something that was stuck is finally moving. Something that felt impossible is finally becoming possible. Something that felt delayed is finally being released. God says financial improvement is coming. Emotional healing is coming. A spiritual awakening is coming. A peaceful connection or reunion is coming. God says this good news is not small. It is life-changing. It is heavy with divine intention. It carries a purpose that will open more doors, attract more favor, and bring more stability into your life. God says you have been carrying a silent fear that things may go wrong. God says, nothing will go wrong with you. You are safe. I am protecting you. God says the angels have been surrounding you more than usual. You may have been feeling tired lately, or emotionally sensitive, or spiritually aware. These are signs that heaven is making adjustments in your life. God says Archangel Michael is guarding your steps. He is clearing negativity. He is guiding your intuition. He is shielding you from situations that could hurt you. God says your prayers did not disappear into the air. They became instructions delivered to angels assigned to you. Heaven has been working behind the scenes. God says every moment you felt forgotten, you were actually being prepared. Every moment you felt delayed, you were being positioned. Every moment you felt lost, God was guiding you without you realizing it. You were never alone. God says He has always been with you, even in the moments when you didn't feel His presence. God says a new chapter is opening. It is softer. It is brighter. It is safer. It is more aligned with what you deserve. God says you have earned peace through your pain. You have earned blessings through your patience. You have earned favor through your faith. Heaven is rewarding you not only because you asked, but because your heart remained pure through every test. God says the reason this message came in front of you is because the timing is divine. You were not supposed to see it earlier or later. God says the 10th of November before 11:57 p.m. is the spiritual gateway where your blessing becomes unlocked. God says He is preparing your heart so you do not doubt His power when the miracle appears. God says be ready. Be open. Do not lose faith now. You are closer than you think. God says the good news coming to you will feel like fresh light entering a room that has been dark for too long. It will feel like something finally breaking free. It will feel like God Himself placing His hand over your life, assuring you that the worst has passed and a new beginning has arrived. God says trust Him. He is not warning you with fear. He is calling you with love. He is guiding you with gentleness. He is protecting you with strength. God says you will not cry the same tears again. You will not repeat the same cycles. You will not lose what He is sending. This blessing is durable. It is divinely protected. It is yours. No one can steal it, block it, or interfere with it. God says all He needs from you is trust, openness, and readiness. God says your life is about to change in a way that will make you look back and understand why every struggle, every delay, every heartbreak, and every disappointment had a purpose. God says He is turning your pain into power, your confusion into clarity, and your waiting into receiving. God says read this carefully, because heaven is speaking directly. You are safe. I am with you. Nothing will go wrong with you. Trust me. Pray to me. Walk with me. I am bringing you the good news you have been waiting for. Do not skip this. Do not delay this. You are chosen for what is coming. This message is God's confirmation. Something beautiful, something powerful, something long awaited is coming toward you now. And God says it will arrive sooner than you expect. God says this is an emergency for your soul, and I am placing these words before you so that you cannot miss what heaven is trying to send directly to your spirit right now. God says, very good news is coming your way in a way you never expected, in a way that will unfold so fast that your heart will tremble with gratitude, and your eyes will fill with tears not of fear, but of overwhelming relief because something you have prayed for in silence, something you healed from quietly, something you endured alone is finally moving toward divine completion. God says, you are reading this at the exact moment you were meant to read it, because heaven arranged the timing so that nothing and no one could stop these words from reaching you. God is saying, if you leave this message or ignore it, you will cry later because you will realize that heaven was trying to warn you, guide you, and save you from something that has been forming behind the scenes. God says, open this fully, read every single word before November 10th at 11:57 p.m. because something is shifting inside the spiritual atmosphere that surrounds your life. God says, I have been watching your tears, every single one. I saw when you cried silently so nobody would notice. I saw when your heart felt weak but you still pretended to be strong for people who didn't even know the storms you were facing. God says, you survived days that almost broke you completely. You held on to faith when it would have been easier to give up. You kept hope alive even when you felt the world closing in around you. God says, you did not fall because I held you, and you did not collapse because your angels protected you in the unseen realm. Archangel Michael stood beside you when people spoke against you behind your back. He held a spiritual shield over your name, your future, and your energy. God says, you think you have been walking alone, but heaven has been surrounding you all along. God says, someone connected to your destiny tried to delay your blessings. Someone who did not want to see you rise attempted to create confusion, distraction, and emotional pressure so you would miss the path I designed for you. But God says, what I have written for you cannot be erased by jealousy, gossip, fear, or manipulation. God says, I am stepping into your situation with divine authority, and nothing that was done in secret can overpower what I am about to release in your life. God says, the very good news that is coming toward you is something the enemy tried to block for months, but now the blockage is being destroyed. God says, you are safe, you are protected, and nothing will go wrong with you as long as you keep trusting me. God says, the angels are opening a path that was closed for a long time. A divine opportunity. A miracle breakthrough, a sudden release of blessings is being unlocked for you, and it will reach you before you expect it. God says, this message is timed. Heaven marks dates, heaven arranges moments, and heaven assigns hours. God says, November 10th before 11:57 p.m. is a spiritual deadline because your blessing is being finalized in the heavenly realm. Something will shift in your life after that time. A door will open, a situation will reverse, a person will return with truth, or a long-awaited opportunity will finally break through. God says, you will not be left behind anymore. You will not suffer silently anymore. You will not be betrayed without justice anymore. You will not be overlooked anymore. The season of being ignored, used, misunderstood, or abandoned is ending. God says, you are being lifted spiritually. Angels are walking into your life with instructions. Messages from heaven are being sent through signs, numbers, dreams, and sudden feelings. God says, pay attention because the guidance you receive now will shape your next chapter. God says, someone who has been praying for you from heaven, someone who loves you dearly, someone who watches over you from the other side is pushing this blessing toward your life. This soul has been begging heaven to give you relief, happiness, success, peace, and divine protection. God says, this person is happy that you are finally ready to receive the blessings you once felt unworthy of. God says, your pain has been noticed. I saw when you were surrounded by people who pretended to care but secretly hoped you wouldn't rise above them. I saw when people took advantage of your kindness, your innocence, your love, and your trust. I saw when someone you loved deeply hurt you without understanding how much you were sacrificing for them. But God says, your heart is pure, and that is why heaven is rewarding you now. God says, very good news is coming because you stayed good even when others were not. You stayed loyal even when they abandoned you. You stayed honest even when others lied to your face. God says, the tears you cried are now transforming into blessings. God says, do not fear what is coming. The spiritual pressure you feel around you is not danger, it is the energy of change. It is the signal that heaven is rearranging your path. God says, I am removing the wrong people. I am exposing hidden enemies. I am detaching you from energies that drained your soul. I am clearing your pathway so your blessings can reach you without interference. God says, someone who once betrayed you is now facing divine consequences. Someone who once walked away from you is now realizing what they lost. Someone who once tried to harm you is now being blocked from accessing your energy. God says, your life is being purified. God says, you worry too much about things that are already handled in heaven. You stay stressed about situations that angels have already solved. You keep thinking about the same fear again and again, but God says, stop worrying. Something beautiful is coming toward you, something good, something divine, something powerful, something unexpected. God says, the very good news that is coming will make you forget years of pain. You will smile again in a way you haven't smiled in a long time. You will breathe differently. You will wake up feeling lighter. You will feel your spirit healing. God says, this message is not random. Heaven pushed this into your path because you are closer to your breakthrough than you think. God says, miracles are real, and one is forming for you right now. You may not see it yet, but you can feel something shifting. God says, trust that feeling. It is not imagination, it is intuition, and intuition is a spiritual gift woven into your soul. God says, you are chosen. That is why your path has been difficult. That is why jealousy follows you. That is why betrayal happens around you. That is why people misunderstand you. God says, chosen souls carry heavy battles, but they also receive heavy blessings. The blessings coming to you will make every sacrifice worth it. God says, I have heard your deepest prayers, the ones you never said out loud. I heard you when you whispered in the darkness. I heard you when you said, God, please don't leave me. God says, I never left. I am still here. I protected you through storms that were meant to destroy you. I shielded you from accidents, illnesses, emotional breakdowns, spiritual attacks, and unexpected dangers. God says, you do not even know the number of situations where heaven saved you quietly, gracefully, gently. God says, you are alive today because I stood beside you. God says, you are entering a new spiritual season. A season of sudden breakthroughs. A season of answered prayers. A season of divine protection. A season of emotional healing. A season of prosperity. God says, the very good news that is coming will arrive at the perfect moment. It may come through a message, a call, an opportunity, a person, a financial breakthrough, or a revelation. God says, you will not miss it because heaven is guiding it directly toward you. God says, but you must remain open, alert, faithful, and connected to me. God says, trust me with your heart. Trust me with your future. Trust me with your fears. Trust me with your dreams. God says, everything you lost will be replaced with something better. Everything you missed will return in a different form. Everything that hurt you will be healed. Everything that broke you will be restored. God says, your story is not ending, it is just beginning. Your next chapter is filled with divine favor, divine protection, divine timing, and divine intervention. God says, I am rewriting your destiny in a way that will shock even you. God says, hold on a little longer. Do not doubt my timing. Do not fear the future. Do not look back. Do not question whether you deserve this blessing, you do. God says, I am giving you peace. I am giving you clarity. I am giving you strength. I am giving you abundance. I am giving you protection. I am giving you victory. God says, the very good news that is coming will prove that your prayers were never ignored, they were only being prepared. God says, read this before November 10th at 11:57 p.m. because this message marks the beginning of your breakthrough. God says, you are safe, nothing will go wrong with you. Angels are beside you, and I am guiding you into a future filled with divine blessings.